This is Tom Fox. This is our continuing exploration of the Marvel Cinematic Universe with myself and Megan Dougherty, co-founder of One Stone Creative. And in this episode, we take up one of my personal favorites, Doctor Strange. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back again with Megan Dougherty for our continued challenge, where we're going to review the entire MCU on popcorn and compliance. Why? Well, number one, it's there. And number two, we are ultimate MCU geeks. What we've done, though, is reviewed them rewatched them, and then podcast about them in chronological order, timeline, not by release date. And I must say, it's been a fabulous experience. And today we continue with one of my personal favorites, Doctor Strange. So I'm Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, your co-host, and
I'm Megan Dougherty, the host of the business podcast Blueprint Show and fellow MCU fan and compliance podcast network enthusiast. So, Tom, I have been looking forward to having this conversation specifically because I know how much you love Doctor Strange, and I know how much you love this movie. So I would love you to just start by rambling on and on the same way I will next week about Thor Ragnarok. Please, how much do you love it?
So boys can't like witches. It's just, we can't. That's just the rule. Even if it's, Samantha on Bewitched. Or at least we can't be witches. Or at least we couldn't be witches. But we could always be wizards. And so I always wanted to be a wizard. So I've loved wizards since I was a kid. And this is a movie about a wizard, Doctor Strange. And as much as it's about a wizard, Megan, the thing that I really love, it's a story of personal journey and personal growth. And certainly it's within the context of the superhero movie, so we have to acknowledge that. But if you step back and really look at it from Dr. Stephen Strange to the MCU character Doctor Strange, there's actually a lot of personal growth. In kind of the introductory scenes, he is a brilliant, and I have to emphasize brilliant, brain surgeon, but he's also a petulant child. And there is a scene after he's in a horrific accident and his hands are basically irrevocably damaged and he can't engage in surgery again, where he has one of the most petulant temper tantrums with a woman who loves him very much and who's put up with him. And he tells her basically, quit simpering around here, trying to do good with the broken boys, and you're just hanging around and get out of here. And not that I've ever said that to anyone, but that's typically what you say when you're at your most petulant. And it was a very powerful scene. I thought it was a humiliating scene for the actress, Dr. Palmer, and she responds with humiliation and leaves, to her credit. But he is literally the master of the universe of medicine at the top of the world, and he takes a fall because he's not paying attention while he's driving his Lamborghini too fast, and becomes injured. And as he tries conventional medical remedies, when all of your fingers are broken, 9.95 can heal, and that other 0.5 can leave you with no ability to be a brain surgeon because of the fine nature of the work you have to do. So he cannot perform as a brain surgeon, and he goes off to the mythical kingdom of Shambhala, and in search of a healing, master arts of healing, called Master Hamir. And that's where he meets, he starts his learning process. And even there, it's a process of learning as he learns to control his astral projections, as he learns to control time and space, and he learns to control himself so that he can be essentially a guardian of the universe with the time stone. And that whole journey really resonated with me. Plus, he's an extraordinarily cool wizard. He gets to do really cool things. He studies ancient texts and he gets to take on some really magnificent bad guys in this movie. The special effects are literally mind bending. Think Inception kind of special effects, if you recall that movie or a fan of that. So, and plus Benedict Cumberbatch. I don't know if this will resonate with you, but when he was in the Sherlock Holmes series, one of the characters kisses him, and they interviewed that actress, and she said, he's so good looking, who wouldn't mind running their fingers through his hair for a kiss? And that's how I've always thought of him, this studly giant. And he's a tall guy.
He's kind of funny looking.
Yeah.
I mean, like in a nice way, but funny looking.
Very narrow face. And anyway, so I've always thought he was a really good looking guy and wouldn't mind, if I was a woman, running my fingers through his hair as well. So
he does have great hair.
Right. And he has great hair.
Great hair.
Great hair. So it worked on a lot of ways. The special effects, as we've come to expect, were first rate. The sidekick, Wong, was just as lovable as they can be. The bad guy was great. We had a good guy who turned into maybe a bad guy at the end, Mordo. The Master was a fabulous character. So kind of all worked for me.
I mean, it was a fun movie. I liked a lot of the same things that you did. It's like the original character, the pre-superhero Doctor Strange. It really struck me that his character was one of the two outcomes of being a gifted child. So either you're going to, when everything's too easy for you when you're in elementary and high school, maybe in college, either you're going to become an anxious, nervous wreck, or you're going to become Doctor Strange. And so it's going to be one of the two. There's no in between. So that happened to him. But one thing that I thought was kind of to his credit as a character, even when he was, an arrogant master of the universe, a lord of creation, more than most of the other MCU characters, he took taking human life really hard. That really impacted him, and it really, I think, impacted the way he, took on the big bad at the end, Dormammu. But a lot of the MCU heroes understand that there's going to be casualties of war, and he's just like, no, I took an oath, man. Like, I may have been an arrogant jerk, but saving and improving human life mattered to me. And I think that was consistent through his character from the beginning to the end. So I kind of liked that about him. And that, it was a really big deal. He was going to make sure that the humans and the people were okay. So I like that about him. And I thought the imagery of his hands was really interesting. All the close-ups on them at the beginning of the surgery, of the washing, how everything was going. And then as soon as he goes into that mirror dimension, and how cool was the mirror dimension for the first time, his fingertips expanding into more hands, and it was all really hand-related imagery, which I thought was super cool.
So the doctor part, the physician part, the Hippocratic Oath, that is in, I can't think of how long ago I first saw that, but the one that sticks in my mind is from the TV show MASH, where Dr. Honeycutt said the same thing. I took an oath.
Yeah.
I took an oath to do no damage and do no harm. And that really seems to matter to doctors. I'm not a doctor, so I can't speculate, but they take an oath, and that oath really means something to them. So I thought that was interesting that he brought the oath in. This is in many ways the most psychedelic of the MCU movies until, as we're recording this, Doctor Strange 2 has come out, which I haven't seen yet.
Me neither.
And
no spoilers, please.
Bring the multiverse fully explored in that, or at least more greatly explored. But we start to explore that in this movie, and it's a theme we're going to see, I think, throughout the next kind of iteration of the MCU. But we had some great Pink Floyd music in the movie. So what gets more psychedelic than Pink Floyd? The penultimate fight scene at climax of the movie is a huge fight at the temple in Hong Kong. And but I was really intrigued and really enjoyed the way they did it, Megan, which was they showed the destruction of the temple, and then we moved backwards in time. And that obviously was part of the time jumping and the time stone, But also thought that was a really effective way to tell a story, uh, basically going backwards visually.
Well, I think on the visual theme, I always like how Marvel treats magic. And they try to explain it, and they have a logically consistent magic system within the MCU. But just the way they displayed the magic with the kind of the floating, glowing icons, that could make these almost runes that would create the spell, and then also create these ephemeral weapons. So visually, I loved how they did that, and I always like watching in all of the other iterations where Doctor Strange appears. That sort of hand-based shield magic was just so fun to watch.
So I misspoke a little bit earlier. I called the temple that he goes to in the Himalayan country as Shambhala. It was Karmataj. I'm going to get to Shambhala in a minute when we get to some of the Easter eggs. In fact, why don't we just maybe go to the Easter eggs because they had some delicious ones in here, starting with Dr. Palmer, who, as the movie has started, has broken up with Stephen. And then he tries to get her back, at least for one night, being a good guy that he is. And that she says, no, that violates her rules about dating coworkers. And he says, oh, the strange rules. And I thought that was pretty funny. There's a reference, the Shambhala reference was almost comedic because when he gets to Kamertaj, the person who takes him to his room says, we're not savages. Here's the Wi-Fi password. And it's Shambhala. Now,
is that my mantra? That was great.
It meant something in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it meant something different to me because Three Dog Night had a song in the early 70s called On the Road to Shambhala. So, which was part of your, quest to go to Tibet. And so that's what I thought the original reference to. Turns out it wasn't quite it, but still pretty cool for me. The other thing was, of course, we had a great Stan Lee cameo. We had the Infinity Stone make another appearance. This is the Time Stone. So because we are seeing this in chronological order, this time around, I understand the purpose of the Time Stones and where they all fit in. So it made a lot more sense. And should you just tell us about when he appears, Thor appears? Not an Easter egg. It's a thrill Thor.
I think it was a clip from the next movie we're going to be talking about. But yeah, so it's the post movie, one of the first two stingers at the end, and it is Doctor Strange post events of Doctor Strange the movie, and Thor just lands in his office looking for Loki, which we know is going to be in trouble, and there's a delightful interchange between the two of them. Is, would you like a cup of tea? I don't drink tea. And then he gets a magically refilling giant stein of beer, and Doctor Strange now has kind of fully grown into his new character. He is one of the defenders of Earth and the protectors of mankind, and he's just like, Loki's trouble, but if you're going to get him out of here, cool, we'll work together. Kind of setting the stage for how they're going to be relating together, I guess grudgingly working together in the future.
One other thing I really liked was it wasn't a sidekick. I'm not sure you can call it that, but it was the cape.
The cape is kind of a sidekick.
And it was a magical cape, of course. But the thing about it was he didn't pick the cape picked him. And that's something we've seen in other movies where the magical creature, the magical weapon, the hammer, any of those, they pick one who is worthy. And so I really liked the cape. And the cape does some really cool things, but the cape picked him. And whether it was because the cape thought he was worthy, whether he would be worthy, it's not really clear. But I always like it when the magical instrumentality picks the person it wants to use as the vessel for its use.
I like that trope too. And I mean, it comes up so often in fantasy and in literature. I mean, the sword and the stone the whole Harry Potter franchise. It's a wonderful trope, and I think it also comes. It's a fun idea, and especially well displayed in this episode is, you can kind of be a jerk but still have this ability. The ability is going to come to who it comes, and worthiness, talent you're born with or not, worthiness you develop over time. And I really like kind of the recurring montage and the recurring idea of all the study and the dedication and the diligent effort required, treating magic, and the acquisition of it as this skill that you can work hard to acquire. I thought was really, really well done. I thought the magic in the MCU is just great. It is always a joy to watch. Just like, and this is my favorite cookie from the whole thing I'd like to share, Benedict Cumberbatch, Doctor Strange, did the motion caption for Dormammu, the big bad at the end. It was him the whole time. I thought that was just a fun mirror dimension extracted.
Right. So I really enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed it. I loved Dr. Palmer. She was a great character. I loved it when he appeared in her hospital and got her to do surgery while he was commenting to her from his astral projection. That was great. And then even as part of the evolution that he had throughout the movie, at the end of the movie, or near the end, he has to cede control of the operation to another doctor who he had belittled earlier in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it showed that, he realized his limitations physically in the physical world because of the way his hands had been injured. So I really enjoy movies about personal growth. I generally detest movies about teenage boys who don't ever grow up, but he grew up. So, so there was.
I think I've mentioned before, not like, dude at great expense of time and effort and property damage and human life discovers other people have feelings is not like the most fun trope. Iron Man did it a little bit, but I think you're like, Dr. Stephen Strange earned it. He also studied for years, and he ultimately saved the world. So okay, we'll give it a pass.
So I don't think it would be breaking too many rules to say he plays a big role in the Endgame and Infinity Wars. So we get to see Doctor Strange again, and I'm looking forward to that. So I hope you will join us for our next episode of Popcorn and Compliance, the MCU series.
Please join us next time as we talk about, I think what's probably my favorite, my personal favorite, Thor Ragnarok.
This is Tom Fox again. Thank you for listening to this episode of Popcorn and Compliance, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I hope you'll join us next time for Megan's personal favorite, Thor Ragnarok. She loves this movie, and her passion for it comes through in our podcast recording. I know you'll enjoy it.